everybody. This is Carlos Garcia and Winslow Lowe, and you are listening to the Creative Hold Podcast. Welcome to episode 3, where we will be discussing and concluding Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. What's up, Winslow?
What's up?
What's going on, man?
How you liking this book so far?
Good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of glad that we're at the end of it, because I'm looking forward to the next book.
Well, for the people out there that are listening, might as well just kind of go and say what is the next one.
Okay, so the next one is another Ryan Holiday book, but this one is called Courage is Calling. So it's all about courage and how to build it up and how to face fears. And I think that'll be a really good topic. I like that because I'm a scaredy cat, so I need lots of courage.
We all are.
Courage.
We all are.
I said courage. Courage.
Oh, I thought it is courage. It's not courage.
It is today.
Okay, perfect. So, like Carlos said, we are wrapping up Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. The book is about applying the wisdom of Stoics, a philosophy made for the trenches of real life, not just the ideas that live in your head.
Well,
Yes, sir. So, who is this book for? Number one, it would be for those struggling to be brave. And I think a lot of us sometimes might have a little problem issue maybe with being brave. At any time, we should be brave. So, number two, those who want more self discipline. Number three, those who care about doing what is right. And four, those that want to become more skilled at living life. So, big thing is about the self growth. For one thing, I like number three about caring about doing what is right. Because no matter what you do, like whatever is right is always going to be right. It doesn't matter. If it's the right thing, then it's the right thing.
regardless of the consequences.
Yep. Unfortunately, I mean,
That's why you
sometimes there
need
are those
courage.
consequences. Yeah. And that's why it's good that we're going to Courage is Calling next. So, Carlos, do you want to touch a little bit about some of the virtues of Stoicism?
Sure. So I had a buddy listen to it and he kind of heard us mention Marcus Aurelius and he's like, I don't even know who that is. And so, you know what, as I kind of like distance myself from the actual book and kind of think about it, um, it's basically about Stoicism, which comes from the Stoics, which is a philosophy which sounds on the surface totally like boring and put you to sleep, ivory tower type of stuff, people who have no life. But the thing that about Stoicism, it's made a comeback in these days, and for a lot of people, it's replacing religion and it's giving them like a worldview or a philosophy or approach to life that helps them in these 4 areas, the 4 virtues of Stoicism. Number one being courage, number two being temperance, number three being justice, and number four being wisdom. So the philosophy is a practical philosophy. It's applying yourself to grow in these virtues. All right. And so here's basically a simpler breakdown. It's on becoming more brave. Temperance, another way to say that is moderation and sobriety, right? Not going to extremes, right? But keeping a balanced life. Number three, doing what is right. We touched on that. And number four is wisdom, aka the skillful application of truth, right? The skillful application of truth. So, want to go ahead and hit that part?
So, it's practical philosophy designed to make us more resilient, also happier, more virtuous, and more wise. And as a result, better people, better parents, and better professionals. It's where CBT comes from. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. So,
Yes.
how I know of CBT would be I also used to work at a prison doing substance abuse counseling, and that was their big, I guess, therapy that they would use would be
Hmm.
CBT. Um, there definitely is quite a few things about it that all kind of go into what Carlos is saying about the stoicism. Um, Is there anything else that you want to touch on CBT?
Um, just as far as the CBT, it's for those who may not be familiar with it. It's pretty popular these days. Like if you're on Instagram or whatever, you see a lot of therapeutic stuff and kind of teaching you how to think differently or how to pay attention to your thoughts and reframe your thoughts in a new way. And basically, that's what it is. And for like Christians, they would call it the renewal of the mind, renewing your mind, right? And the only reason I bring that up is because I'm not a Stoic, right? I don't practice
Right, right.
Stoicism. I'm a Christian. However, I love learning from different camps, and there are a lot of similarities between the Stoic practices and Christianity. And so that's why I can kind of like go through this. And I mentioned last time there's a lot of similarities. So that's why I like a lot of the things that come from Stoicism.
So quickly, here is a quick recap of the book. The obstacle is the way into the three main sections. One, perception, our attitude towards the problem. Two, action, the creativity to overcome it. And three, which is will, our determination to conquer the difficulty within. So we already discussed perception and we already discussed action. So today our topic will be about will. And pretty much it kind of goes over three points. The one would be accepting what you can't change and changing what you can. Two, being ready to persevere. And three, to meditate on death and get ready to begin again.
That sounds exciting.
Meditating on death.
Meditating on death.
Yeah. That
So what is the will, Winslow? What is the will?
So, will is our internal power. So, what we possess on the inside. We have intellect, we have emotions, and we have our will. Our will is part of us that chooses. Um, so, the big thing, or one of the points, was accept what you can't change and change what you can, similar to the serenity prayer. Um, so, you want to go on, just touch it really quick on the serenity prayer?
So, for those that may have a background in recovery, the Serenity Prayer is something that they use to kind of like ground you, especially when you're dealing with anxiety or fears, and just kind of give you a quick perspective. And if I don't butcher it, I think it's uh, what is it, bro? Remind me,
I don't
because
remember.
God help us to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There you go. And so it's a little nugget of a prayer, but there's a lot packed in it.
Yeah. So, with this whole idea of accept what you can't change and change what you can, um, and in like a practical sense, something that I feel would be like if you and we kind of touched this, I think last week a little bit, but it's a whole thing of, I mean, if you can't change it, like if it's something set in concrete, made by somebody else, we'll just say made by your bosses or something like that. Like there's nothing for the most part that you can do to change it. So you pretty much change what you can. So maybe it's the idea of maybe creating it in a way, making it a little bit more creative in how you ask something. Say if you work with clients, members, patients, whatever the case may be, and there's a specific way for you to do it according to maybe the company that you work for. Let's say that you don't agree with it. So it's okay to not agree with something, because you do have that choice and you're allowed that opinion. But the whole thing is that you have to know that you can't change it, in the sense that you might think. So you accept it, you move on. Goes back to that word pivot. You pivot to come up with another way in order to go about whatever the obstacle is that you're facing. So, for instance, let's just say they want you to. I'm trying to think of a scenario right now. Can you think of anything right now?
Mm, maybe like let's say maybe with my son, I went through a situation with my teenage son when he was younger, and he was went through a really challenging time. and I did not want to accept what what I was having to go through with him. He's giving me a little taste of my own medicine from when I was like a teenager. They say, it comes back to get you. Well, it came back with a vengeance, boy. But anyways, I kept trying to force change. I kept trying to control the situation, and it came to a place where I realized I had to change the way I was thinking about it, because all I was doing was creating more problems for myself and for him, because it wasn't going to change, not at that time. And so by letting go of forcing it to change, um, it allowed the relationship to relax and allow things to work out. And I had to act like we talked about last time, learning how to trust the process.
Trust in the process. That is
Yeah,
always good.
yeah,
So next we
not easy.
have, what was that?
I said not easy though.
No, definitely not. But at least for the most part, we know that the end goal of whatever steps that you're taking within that step um, is for the most part going to get you to the goal to where you need to be. And I think that's the part where it makes all the rough times a little bit more manageable. I'm not saying like easily manageable or anything like that. I'm just saying a little bit less stressful by if you just trust the process. So
Yeah,
one
hard to
of the
do if you're a
ideas that
control freak.
unfortunately
Which I
that's
are.
a good one.
So
And it's weird because I know I can't control everything, but yet I try to control everything.
certainly make a
So
good
one of the
college
one of
cat.
the things that within this book, Ryan Holiday is he's talking about an inner citadel. So within that inner citadel, it's a place inside of us where there is peace and contentment, regardless of what is happening outside of the walls. If we lose ground here, we lose our place of peace. So the big thing with like the inner citadel, um, so everything takes place inside of us: anger, jealousy, misery, frustration, joy, peace. Our opinions about the outside world happens inside of us. So even besides the opinions about the outside world happens inside of us, I would almost take it to the step of everything that's within us, because everything does take place inside of us. So the anger, jealousy, misery, frustration, joy, and peace. So it goes back to the we're choosing what story that we are framing up in our mind.
Yes.
So no matter if it's anger, no matter if it's jealousy, no matter if it's misery, frustration, um, but for the most part, like I would try to choose peace. Sometimes peace isn't the easiest to come by, um, but I think it all comes down to whatever perception I am using for whatever story is taking place in my head. Might make it a little bit harder. But overall, I do know that by me framing something up in my head, rewriting that story, I can get the results that I need. And a lot of times, like Carlos was saying with him, he's a man of faith, just like me. So a lot of times I look to God for a lot of my joy and my peace. And even when I have anger, even when I am jealous, I still, and this is a hard concept for some people to understand, but I still find ways to praise even when I'm angry and even when I'm jealous and miserable. Um, so, and that's just kind of how I frame it in my head, and that's what I live by. So the whole thing with the inner citadel, it's that place inside of us. Um,
Yep.
so
Yep.
how do you feel about the whole inner citadel
I think
idea?
it's important. I think it's important to protect that place of peace. Um, it's it's I think Marcus Aurelius, the guy that we mentioned earlier about Stoicism in the other episode, he referred to the inner citadel as your soul. So making sure that your soul is taken care of. And it has to do with your interpretations of life, because events happen, right? Things happen, but it's like you said, it's that story we tell ourselves about what happened, right? That creates the stress, creates the anger, the misery, the frustration. And so I think the difficult part is knowing when to tap out. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, we want to tackle a problem, we want to find a solution. And that's not a bad thing. But when we keep pushing the issue, and really what we need to be doing is letting go, right? That's a big game changing decision right there. Because what you tell yourself when you let go is, am I being careless? Am I being irresponsible? Right? Or if you're a person, right, that can trust the process, or um, use your faith as a comfort, where, like, I'm not in this world by myself. In my worldview and the way I believe, I'm not in this world by myself. I have the Lord, I have God to help me, so I can roll my burdens off onto Him, and He helps me, and He carries those, and He sees around the corners that I don't see. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not in this alone, and so that gives me some peace.
Yeah, and I think like when you're talking about failure a little bit ago, and we touched on this I think last week, which was we are going to fail at things, and it's just one of those things. It happens, but at that point, you can accept it and just know that we are going to fail at things. Or two, maybe however you're going about it wasn't the right way.
Mhm.
So I'll just touch on this really quick. So let's say our podcast 2 years ago when we were talking about it, um, we just kept talking, kept talking, kept talking. So let's say a year later, then we're just like we're not going to do it because like it's already failed or whatever the case may be. So in our heads, it wasn't so much of a thing that it was failure. It was more of a thing that we have to pivot in the sense of, okay, so now we have to set some things down that are tangible, that we could touch, that we can see, that we could move ahead rather than just talk about it and not do anything about it. Because it's all about knowing knowing what your limits are, knowing how far you have gone um, in the process. Like I could have thought, like, oh well, I've done everything I could for this podcast to work, but nothing has happened. Even though I know like I didn't, but in my head I could tell myself that story and just be like, I'm done with it. Like it's whatever. But
Mhm.
then we would have never have started the creative whole. And I'm glad that we did. I'm glad that we did eventually kind of sit down, well, on the phone
Hit record.
and yeah, and talk about it to see what we needed to do. Um, and so I think it worked out.
Yep.
So boats were made to be in the water, not the other way around. What happened if the boat fills up with water?
And so that ties back to that inner citadel, right? It's kind of like we have to protect it, and it's kind of like a boat in the water. Different metaphor, right? But that boat's supposed to get you across the water, keep you out of the water. But if the water gets inside, then that boat goes down, it sinks. In the same way as if our interpretations of the external world, what's happening to us, if they um, start sending messages to us that we don't reframe it, we don't use the tools that we have to change our thinking about it, right? And do some of the things we've talked about in this podcast so far, then the water will get inside the boat. We'll start taking on too much water, and that's when we get stressed and we get frustrated and
Overwhelmed.
overwhelmed, burdened, depressed, anxiety ridden, all that
So
jazz,
so
right?
so like really quick, I'm gonna tell a quick story. It was something that I think I read somewhere. It's probably Facebook or something like that. Because you brought up a book or a boat, and then you brought up, and then we were talking about when you do what's right, it's always right. So it was talking
Hmm.
about this story. It was about a guy and this boat. So another gentleman, I guess he wanted his boat painted or whatever. the case may be. So the guy was like, okay, yeah, I'll paint your boat and whatever the case may be. So I guess as this guy was painting the boat, he found that there was like a hole in it. So his only job was to paint the boat. But what this guy ended up doing was he patched the hole, and then he painted it. So he goes to the guy that gave him the job in order to paint the boat. He gives him the money, whatever the case may be, and then it was kind of like a done deal or whatever. So, and I might be butchering this story a little bit, but you'll kind of get where it's coming or going to. So, I guess a guy that paid this other gentleman to paint the boat, I guess um, he was saying that his kids were going out into the water to go fishing or something like that. So I guess when he heard about it, I guess he got like anxious, started having like a panic attack type of thing, because then he remembered, oh, there's a hole in the boat and
Hmm.
they're going to be in open water. And I don't know how young they were, but he was just, it seemed like they were kind of young. So if the boat started sinking, like they kind of want to know what to do.
Hmm.
So I guess, so then that happens. Um, and he's just like super worried, whatever the case may be. And then those two guys meet up again and he gives them more money. And he was like, well, what are you doing? He was like, you already paid me for like what you did. He was like, well, um, oh, this is for repairing the hole in the boat. And he's like, the repair that I did wasn't that much money, of the extra money that you gave me. So he was like, no, he was like, well, you don't understand. He was like, because when I heard that they were going out into the water, to the lake, ocean, whatever the case may be, when I heard that they're going out to the water, I got panicked because I knew there was a hole in the boat. So me giving you like this amount of money, he was like, there's not enough money that I could give you, um, that would make it okay, because instead of you just painting the boat, like you fix the thing and like now my kids are like back to me and they're safe. Moral of the story is doing the right thing is always doing the right thing. Like he didn't understand, like, well, why are you giving me more money? Like I don't need that more, or I don't need extra money or anything like that. And it's like, it's not only because you fixed that small hole, it's because like in a sense, like you saved my kids.
Hmm.
So it all goes back in doing the right thing is always the right thing.
It's always the right thing. Yes, sir.
That's how I feel.
Nice.
So you want to take the next one?
All right. So the next point in the last section of the book of on the topic of will is be ready to persevere. And so is perseverance is often confused with persistence. Persistence is throwing everything you've got at a single problem, a single obstacle. Perseverance is different. It's being in it for the long haul, being ready to face all the obstacles. It's a matter of will. If persistence is like energy, then perseverance is like endurance.
So what do you think
Hmm.
about that idea of persistence is a single problem, um, and perseverance is attacking multiple things at once?
I think it helps to distinguish the difference between the two in my mind because if I have, a problem, it's the energy I put into solving that problem is my persistence. So I'm going at that problem. I'm doing what I can to solve that problem. And it may take me some time, it may take me some energy, and then bam, right? Persistence pays off. But after one obstacle, usually another obstacle will emerge, right? New problems come. And so then you have to persevere, right? For the long haul. You have to do the long game. And I kind of the thought that comes to my mind is, something as simple as, a teenager or someone doesn't have a car. Like, man, I really wish I had a car. Why? Because I have a problem. What's your problem? Problem is I have to walk. I don't want to walk. I have to ride a bus. I have to be at a certain place at a certain time to catch the bus. I need money to do that. Okay. So now you solve the problem. Now you got a new problem now that you have a car and you have to pay for gas. Friends
What?
find out you friends find out that you have a car, so they want rides everywhere. You need insurance, you need tags, and a whole bunch of new problems emerge, right? So say persistence is doing everything I can to get the car. I get the car, And now it's the long game of perseverance, of taking care of maintaining that car.
Do I
That's
have
the
to?
endurance. Well, you don't have to, but you might be walking again.
But I do like how Ryan Holiday said uh how the persistence is like energy, then perseverance is like endurance. It's
Yeah,
it's almost like the whole marathon versus a sprint in my head. That's how I pictured it, I guess.
yeah. Both require different, I guess, mindsets.
Mindsets.
Yeah,
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 it's the first thing
definitely.
I thought. So
All right.
life is like a series of obstacles. If you can't overcome this one, don't quit. Persevere. It's up to you whether you keep trying. It's up to you whether you tap out or get up. Um, and I think that's where the persevering comes from. And like a lot of things, it's man, I wish I could quote that Rocky that line in
Adrian.
it's like a line in like Rocky 17 or something like that. It kind of goes with that. That was the first thing that I thought. It's about like getting knocked down, but all that matters it doesn't matter that you get knocked down. All that matters is that you get back up. So you tap
I
out or
don't
you
want to be a
don't.
bum. I don't want to be a bum all my life.
So Will,
All right.
ooh, meditate
What?
on death and get ready to begin again.
Mm, that's an attractive topic.
Yeah. So like before we go like into this one, like the first time when I thought of that, I was thinking of Gary V. Do you know what part? Do you know what I'm gonna say about him about that? How
I
he
don't.
talks about how he always talks about like he was like it might sound like morbid or whatever like that, but how he is happy and content with things is he pictures, and I might be butchering it, sorry Gary, but is he could be upset about something, but if he thinks about everybody in his life that he loves and they died, like how would he feel? Um, and it all comes down to like perspective.
Going back
Like,
to perception and perspective.
yeah, it's like, well, I could be happy, I could be sad, but I'm going to choose to be happy because everybody that I love is still alive. That's just kind of what I thought when I
Yeah.
heard about the meditate on death.
Well, it
maybe,
goes right
maybe,
into the next slide.
yes, sir. So it may sound morbid, but we're all going to die. Maybe not today, but each day that we don't die, death draws nearer. So, like, literally, death is out of our control. What do they say? How's it? The two things that are guaranteed is death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
Well, taxes for
I'm more scared of
majority.
taxes than the.
Yeah, I don't like paying taxes. Death, whatever.
It's death.
Taxes,
It's
come
death.
on.
It's death on my wallet.
Um, So death is out of our control. It's not something that we should worry about, but is something that we should think about because it can give our life renewed purpose, renewed energy. Um, so what do you think about that idea?
I think that it absolutely
Okay,
reminds me of
so let me go into this because it says something that we should worry about. Typically, worrying isn't something that you want to do. So when
right.
it says that we should worry about it, how could that be a good thing?
Well, I guess from my perspective, I wouldn't say worrying about it is a something. It's not something we should do. That's my opinion. Maybe it was just the choice of words that were because we copy these from the book highlights.
Yes.
But I would say it's something that we should consider, that we should be thinking about. But worry, I think, kind of defeats the purpose of the principles of stoicism because you don't want worry because worry represents the water getting in your boat, right? So you don't want to be
Yes.
worrying about it. but it is taking a good hard look, sitting down and having a cup of coffee with the Grim Reaper and being okay and making peace with the fact that your days are coming shorter. And like it says earlier, not in a morbid way, um, but for some people, death, no matter what, is morbid because it's something that, especially in our culture, we do not want to think about death, you know. But it can actually, like it says
Or
here, it's
taxes.
something that yeah, yeah, or taxes. Like here it says, it can give you a renewed purpose and renewed urgency. And so basically when you know that, your time is limited and you know that there's a clock ticking, right? That puts things in perspective, right? The way I feel about life and the way I look at it now, as I'm getting older, I'm in my 40s now, and I remember one day I thought I would never live up to age 20, and so here I am. And I was just talking to a friend today. I was like, look, you think about it, man, what's the average lifespan? Say 70, 80, 90 years, give or take, right? um that comes quick. It comes really quick. And so it teaches you to be more thankful for the time you have. So and it does remind me, the king. There was a king in Israel. He was kind of a philosopher, a wise guy, um, dude from the Bible named Solomon, and he said it's good to be in the house of mourning. Um, and so basically, be around funerals. And why? Because it gives you perspective, right? That to cherish the moments, and it gives you insight into humanity, and that life is passing and every day is a gift. And if you learn to receive it that way, then that makes room for joy and peace in your life. Um, because yeah, it's a limited resource. So begin with the end in mind.
So almost beginning with the end of mine, it's almost like a reverse reverse engineering type of
Yeah.
thing. Um, so even with the whole thing of yes, death is out of our control, and even if the choice word was to worry, I feel like almost everything, I guess, is okay to a point. Now, what is that point that you're going over the hill? So it's almost like, is being angry a good thing? Is being angry a good thing?
Depends what you're angry at and how you express your anger and how your anger is affecting you.
Okay. So I want to say one thing that I remember doing in one of my groups was that anger is good in the aspect of like knowing, what was it? Something about knowing that it is affecting you. So by you knowing that it's affecting you, then you can use it in more of, I guess, using that negative energy and turning it into a positive energy.
Can
Um,
channel it.
yeah. So I think having that worry, because when I think worry, I almost think that you care about a problem or you care about a situation. So when you care about it, it at least lets you know that there's something in there for you.
Yeah,
Even with pain. Like sometimes it's good to feel pain because then you know you're alive. Now I don't want to get
absolutely.
like, I don't want to get shanked or anything, but like just like pain in general, like physically, emotionally, at least if I'm feeling that, then I know that I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And I
You know,
and
it's
I
it's
think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go on. That's all.
It reminds me of this book, another book that I read. I think the guy's name was Brand, but he was a doctor. He was a missionary, and he worked in a leper colony. And lepers were those that I guess they lost all the feelings and nerve endings and stuff. And so they would, like, their noses would literally fall off, fingers would get fall off, but they would catch themselves on fire, or burn themselves really bad, and they couldn't feel it. And so, like, a lot of times we think pain is a bad thing, right? But he talks about how pain is a gift because it's what lets you know that something is wrong. It's what lets you know that something needs to change, right? It's a little warning sign, an indicator. When the dash light comes on in your car, on the dashboard, a light comes on. That's a little indicator. that, hey, pay attention, right? When you feel heat, pay attention. So
So
it
that's why
just
a
made
lot
me
of
think of
times
that.
in like abusive substances, like it isn't necessarily, well, it isn't a good thing. Um, because all you're doing is just putting a band-aid on it, and it's going to continue to come and come and come until you actually figure out the problem that is at hand. Um,
Yeah.
Rather than like feeling the pain, like, oh, that's painful. So now what's the next action step I'm going to take? It's like, well,
Hmm.
the action step I'm going to take is I'm going to drown it in something because it's the easiest
Hmm.
thing. And a lot of times we want to do things the easiest way. And the easiest thing would be to block that pain receptor. And if we
Yeah.
could block it and we know it's going to work, then we're just going to keep doing it because we don't want to deal with that pain.
So at this point right here, bro, I just want to do like a shameless plug of
Of course.
of the gospel. And the reason why is
Good.
because you're talking about pain and it being relieved. Well, thinking about death, that's very scary for a lot of people. An interesting thing is the thing Ryan Holiday, the guy who wrote this book. I was reading this thing about him and his books and about his view of Stoicism, and how basically he's saying that going back to Stoic philosophy gives people a worldview, and you get to basically get rid of religion and things like that. And he's saying all that as if it's just black and white. But the interesting thing about the Stoics is they didn't necessarily believe in a personal God, but they believed in like almost like either gods or this universal principle type thing, something greater than themselves, right?
Like just
Whether they
the
called it,
other.
yeah, like just the other, whether it's something that they called God or not, but it was something other than themselves that was alive. And as a believer, um, I can accept death and face it. And some people are not scared of death; they just don't believe in it. But like old school, I still believe in like heaven and hell, and I know those are like topics that most people don't like. But I'm old school. I'm a Bible guy. So
Absent from the body is present with the Lord.
yes, sir. And so those are things that can also be deterrents for your moral compass. If you know that, you're going to meet your creator, and that, there's basically going to be a review of your life. Um, you know, you can be and you be found wanting in the scales. For believers in Jesus, this is where the cross is a beautiful thing because it's he paid the price for the imbalance that we could never measure up. We always fail in some way, shape, or form. You know, um, he knows the core of what's going on inside of us, and so that's why he sent Jesus was to take that penalty for us, so that we can have something to look forward to. That's not we're not going to be fretting, and biting our nails like what's going to happen. Am I going to make it? Right? Because we're not balancing, to see if our good deeds outweigh the bad deeds. No, we depend on grace. And so, in a lot of ways, that's how Christianity is very much different from Stoicism, because we have a hope, and that doesn't depend on our own morality per se. Yet, this hope should cause us to have a more developed moral compass because we're not doing it just to be good. We do it because we love someone who's been good to us.
I agree. So if you can accept death, you can face any obstacle and use it to your advantage. What obstacle can't you overcome? So one last thing to remember is you'll always have to begin again. One obstacle down, get ready for the next one. Get ready for overcoming an obstacle to create a new obstacle. Which
Yay.
I but I do think it goes back to the whole thing of trusting the process,
Mhm.
because a process is more than one thing. So within this, in the context of this, it's one obstacle and then another obstacle and then another obstacle.
Yeah.
But the end goal would be to trust the process. The most important step is the one that you're taking. Don't worry about the 17th step. It's the one that you're taking. So everything comes back down to the process. So one obstacle's down. Now you're going to do another one and then another one and then another one. But just be okay in it. It's the whole like it's almost in the sense of comfort in the chaos. You're
Hmm.
just being okay with if there is chaos, okay, that's fine. If there isn't, okay, even better. But it's always being okay with the next obstacle um, in mind. So this might sound exhausting, but the more you do it, the better you'll get. Whatever doesn't kill you will only make you stronger and more experienced. Um, so yes, obstacle after obstacle after obstacle does sound exhausting, but I do believe that as uh,
It's a way of
it
life.
was as it was said in the book, like the more you do it, the better you'll get. Which I believe it, and that's almost with anything and everything. You put one of your obstacles that you have in your I don't know your life right now. I feel that if you keep overcoming an obstacle, that you'll be able to do the next one. And by knowing that you did the previous one, you should be comfortable in knowing that you could do the next one. Because if you don't think about it in the situational mind frame, you think about it in the grand scheme of things of it being an obstacle. If you take it as an obstacle, then you know that you've already, I guess, climbed an obstacle and you defeated it. Rather than taking it as a separate a separate entity of, I don't know, a heartbreak, and then I don't know, maybe some problem at work. If you take everything as what it is, it might be a little bit harder. But if you see it as the grand scheme of thing as, oh well, it's just an obstacle. I know I've went over many obstacles before, and there's nothing different about this because it's something that's just in my way, and I'm going to pretty much overcome it, and I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to get more experienced. And with that experience, it's going to make you better, just like in the end for
Gooder and gooder.
anything, gooder and gooder. That's right. So learning to see problems as opportunities for growth, learning to plan, adapt, and persevere, learning to trust the process and to accept what you can't change and change what you can. So by doing all this, you end up experiencing less fear, more courage, more disciplined life, development of moral character, and more skilled at the art of living. And I do believe the whole thing of the art of living will help, like in the end, by doing so. Going back to the whole perception of whatever problem it is, whatever obstacle it is, if you take it in the more positive aspect, it's going to be a lot better than if you take it in the negative. You take it in the negative, you're just going to go down a rabbit hole into negativity, and it's going to you can get out of the negativity and become positive. Might take you a little bit longer. And then the action, taking whatever action that you're going to take is going to be dependent on however you perceive the obstacle. So if you perceive it in a way that is out of control, the action that you're probably going to take is probably no action, because what's going to happen is you're going to get overwhelmed and you're just going to sit there stagnant and not really know what to do. Now we go to will. So the thing about will is it's within us, and it's all about whether you're persistent with something or you persevere. I think persevere does help you to gain a little bit more life experiences. Um, makes it easier for you to, I guess, have less fear, create that more courage in your life, more discipline, definitely moral character, and definitely will help you be more skilled in the art of living. And I think my big thing is like
That's true,
personal
Tim.
growth, self growth. I guess that's one and the same. But I believe everything is all about growing for yourself, growing personally, growing as a family man, growing as a Christian, growing in your business, growing in your podcast, growing in anything. I believe that is the art of living. So what is your take?
I think you pretty much summed it up. Um, I think as you practice these things, you gain insight. Pain has a way of making you stop and reflect. And as long as that pain doesn't destroy you and you're able to metabolize it, you're able to digest it and um, reframe the pain, and make sure that that story that you're telling yourself is not one of defeat and where you end up being the victim, but you enter into a place where you continue to fight for that victory. And sometimes you take some L's. That's part of life, but that's okay because you grow from those too. As long as you gain insight, and I think ultimately that's the outcome is you become more wise as you reflect on your experiences and you gain that insight, knowing what you could have done different, how you were thinking about it, right or wrong, and what are your strategies to be more successful in your next attempts to accomplish things. Because I mean, that's the thing about life. We're trying to the pursuit of happiness or the pursuit of satisfaction. And what that means for one person may be completely different for another. Um, not trying to be morbid, but I think it was C.S. Lewis said something along the lines of one man's pursuit of happiness or idea of happiness is to do something. I don't know, like basically like go on vacation or whatever. And he said another man's um, uh, pursuit of happiness may be on the end of a noose. Um, and that's because that's what was going to make him happy was to check out. And so, I mean, it's those are heavy thoughts, but life is heavy. But we also want to have lightness in life and be able to laugh and to enjoy, the things of life. And it really has to do with the story we tell ourselves and having good company along the journey. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
it makes all the difference in the world. You have good company with you.
And I know I have good company with Silos over here.
Orale.
So we kind of touched a little bit, but I want to say again what the next book starting next week is going to be.
Courage is calling.
Also another one by Ryan Holiday.
Ring, ring, ring.
Hello, who is this?
Hello, this is Courage.
Oh, what's up,
Courage
Kurt?
calling.
Cool.
We're dorks.
You are. I'm not.
I am, but you went along. You co-signed it, bro.
Yeah, I did. I really did.
All
So,
right.
so tell me, what would be an elevator pitch of the book?
I think I just gave it. I wouldn't know how to do it all over
Man, it's a
again
long
without kind
elevator.
of being repetitive. Yeah.
I like that
Well,
long elevator. But you know what I'm gonna say really quick, um, is if you were to take anything out of this book, and the things that we've set up, which was perception, action, will, even though all of them are definitely important, but I think the one that got me the most is perception. And I think the reason why it's perception is because it's the way you look at whatever it may be. Whatever you
yes.
look at a situation, however however you choose to frame it up in your mind is how you're going to take the next step. And I think the next step is an important one, but it's not as important as the step that you are taking. So with that being said, thanks for joining Carlos and Winslow on another episode of The Creative Whole. Make sure you check us out on Spotify and YouTube. And hopefully if you're listening to this on Anchor, Spotify, you give us a 27-star review, even though it goes up to 5, but whatever. I'll take 5. You know what? I'll take whatever your heart is telling you to do. If it's a 1, let us know. However you want to tell us, let us know so we can be better for you guys. We are here for you guys.
We're
And we
here
hope
for you.
that's right. And we hope that everything that we're doing is helping you along your way and in your journey of life. So with that being said, I'm Winslow, that is Carlos, and we are the Creative Whole. Peace.
Peace.
Yes, sir.